I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 30 of Tales from Godric's Hollow, your parents' favorite Harry Potter podcast on the internet. Now, if you can find other Harry Potter podcasts elsewhere that's not on the internet, I can't vouch for how much they like those, but I can say definitively of the podcasts that are on the internet, this is definitely your parents' favorite of the bunch. This is Monday, January 23rd. We are covering chapters 17 and 18 of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I am the muggle of the show, your co-host, Josh Brown. I am joined, as always, by the sage of the Shrieking Shack, Matt Sonnenberg.
How are we doing tonight, Josh?
Boy, oh boy, Matt, what a show do we have lined up here?
I've been waiting for these chapters, and like people were saying last week, I didn't realize how back heavy this book is.
Yeah.
It just I completely forgot how long it takes to get to all these reveals that we're getting to tonight. I'm like, when is it coming? When is it coming? When is it coming? And it's like, so I kept having to go ahead and check that, make sure I saw this book right. I'm like, I know this happens,
Right.
but it's not coming yet, and I'm running out of pages.
Yeah. I was starting to get concerned myself, Matt. I thought you were leading me down a dark path of more questions, less answers. And, well, let's just put it this way. You finally delivered on your promise about this book being so freaking good.
Yes.
Not to say the rest of the book hasn't been good, because let's be real here. The Lee Jordan chapter might be the best chapter of the series so far. However, the totality of the book itself, I feel like these two chapters that we just read are the meatiest part of the bone, if you will, you know?
I can definitely see that.
So I'm excited to talk about this tonight. This is going to be a super fun show. I'm also a little mad at you, not going to lie. This isn't the first time this has happened, Matt, but
It's true. Just curious as to why now.
same reason as last time, forcing me to end my reading on that cliffhanger. I'm just like, okay, that was a 5-page chapter.
I know.
You expect me to stop after this?
Well, it's not going to make it any better, but next week is almost the same deal.
Oh, I'm
Like,
sure it is.
Like I don't know if it's quite as much of a cliffhanger, but I like the first chapter is like normal length, and then the second chapter is like 8 pages. I'm like, I don't remember this. Why is this chapter so short? But makes for easy reading at least.
The precision of which you picked the chapters to read each week is astonishing, Matt. Like if we had ended after just like chapter 17 by somehow, like you decided one of the earlier bigger chapters was just a 1-chapter week type of thing, and somehow we got into odd numbers and chapter 17 was the end of it, I would have felt satisfied, right? I would have felt satiated to say, like, you know what? That was a good week of reading.
Yeah.
I'm ready for next week. But leaving me with chapter 18 to just think over for the next week? Not happy,
You could
Matt.
you could come up with some good theories.
I could, and I should probably record them if I do. But I'm just saying, Matt, it's going to be a long week, and I'm not happy about it. But it'll probably make for better shows, so I can't argue too much.
There you go.
Speaking of recording theories throughout the week, we introduced a new element to our show. I kind of teased it. No, I didn't tease it last week because it didn't happen last week.
No, you teased it on Twitter.
That's right. That's where it came from.
In a sense, yeah.
Yes. So as everybody know, we have the Butterbeer Banter shows that we do, which we released a new one this last week, round 3, where we covered the wizarding world of Harry Potter and our experiences going to the theme parks. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking about that stuff and reliving it.
Yep.
Makes me really want to go back and definitely go down to Orlando. So thank you for that. But aside from that show, which we do, we try to do one a month. We've been pretty good so far. After we recorded this show proper, episode 29 last week, I had some time to reflect on the show, Matt.
Yeah.
It was early morning. I was shoveling snow. I was throwing salt down to de-ice sidewalks and such, and making it generally safe for people to walk around. You know, I'm a caring guy, Matt. I give back to the community. I also get paid for it. So
I was gonna say, yeah, you get paid for that. Yeah.
Regardless, I don't know how often you've been up at 4 or 5 a.m. shoveling snow, but it's usually pretty quiet around that time.
Very.
The city was still kind of shut down. There weren't people going to traffic at the normal clip that they would at that time. The snow and ice definitely dampened sound. So it was just super quiet, and I was just a man alone with my thoughts, and I was just thinking and thinking and thinking about last week's episode. Just everything that we had talked about, my crazy predictions. I was starting to work around things that you had either said or didn't say throughout the episode that I didn't immediately catch while we were recording. That somehow set off something in my brain that says, hey, you need to think about this. So I had a lot of time to think, Matt, and put some things together here. And like this light bulb, like above my head went off. And I thought that I had something cooking, right? A prediction, a theory as to where the story was going. But then I had this moment of, we just recorded an episode. I can't sit on this for an entire week. What do I do? So I went to Twitter and I asked the people, hey, what do I do with this? And everybody decided, Twitter's probably not the best place to just lay out those kind of theories because it might get ruined. So I bounced it off of you via text message, but I didn't get anything back, Matt. I got nothing.
Hey, you got a response, just not the response you were looking for.
That's true. And reading your emotions through text message is even harder than reading your emotions via Skype call. So I didn't know. I felt good that I had gotten it out to someone, but I felt it was too good to just not do something with. And I was afraid that if I waited and talked about it this week, that what I was theorizing would be resolved in these 2 chapters coming up, and therefore no one would actually be able to give me credit for being amazing at this kind of stuff if I just told them it was my theory. You know, like I was like, hey, I had this theory this week. Turns out I was a lot right, you know?
Yes.
No one would give me that kind of credit, Matt. No one would give me props for that. So I decided to record a new show, Muggle Theories. I put it out midweek. We'll explain the whole process at the end of the show. But it definitely was released before we recorded this one so that people could listen and they could nod their head and be like, wow, he did it. He cracked the code.
Yeah. Don't worry. People did give you your props.
Thank you. I'll take the bow now. But those props only happened because I was able to cement my theory before recording this episode and before I was able to read ahead. So,
yes,
Muggle Theories was launched. It will not necessarily always be a weekly thing. I'm definitely going to let the process happen organically. As theories happen or come across my Muggle brain throughout the week after recording an episode, that's when the Muggle Theory shows will be recorded. If nothing comes, if there's nothing to theorize about or just nothing's popping into my head that I find interesting, you're probably not going to get one that week. I'm not going to try to force it. I'm not going to try to theorize for the sake of just entertainment. I'm gonna let it happen naturally, organically. If you get them, you know I'm onto something big, or I'm completely lost my mind. One of the two.
Either way, it's going to be good.
Yeah. So I mean, you listened to it. You thought it was decent.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they're short little episodes. This one will probably be a little bit longer than most, just because I wanted to kind of intro what I was doing and why I was doing it.
Yeah, honestly, the first half of the episode is
Yeah.
you explaining what you're doing.
Sure.
Since, we didn't explain it anywhere else.
Right.
I understood, but
Wanted some context, but that's definitely not going to happen every episode. So,
but with that being said, though, the episode was still only 19 minutes long. So
Right.
compared to our normal 2.5 hours, it was an easy listen, I think.
Sure. Well, here's the thing, Matt. When I'm talking to myself, I don't have anyone, even if that other person is silent or has muted themselves, to bounce things off of.
Sure.
You know, I don't get even like the one word little responses from you sometimes are just enough to keep me going or to deviate me from like my path that I thought it was on and like just completely fork me over to the other side. You're good for
enough.
that. Without that
yeah.
other person, though, it's hard to just keep going and going and going.
It's understandable. Yeah.
I'm sure the people will appreciate that too.
I don't know how long I can just keep talking to myself.
I mean, give me the chance, Matt, and you know we could do some things here. But it's not as fun to just sit there and because the longer I went, the longer I started to feel like I sounded like a madman, and I was like, I'm really just sitting here theorizing about something that if I really wanted to, I could just go read right now and not do all of this. Like the book is downstairs. I could avoid all of this craziness right now by just, doing my assigned reading a little early and getting it done. But so the longer I started like talking about my theory, I was like, man, this is insane. What am I doing? That's what you've done to me, Matt. That's what Harry Potter has done to me.
It's true.
I'm starting to question my own sanity here.
You've gone mad.
Just about. Mad Muggle, they call me.
It's true. I believe I did call you that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, we'll touch more on Muggle theory stuff at the end of the episode. So if you're wondering where to find those and when they're going to appear, we'll be sure to let you know all you need to know at the end.
Definitely.
But before we get there, you did mention Butterbeer Banter.
Mm-hmm.
This week was about the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which caused me to use that for our Muggle poll this week.
You cheated, Matt, is what you're saying.
A little bit.
You got stuck and you pulled the ace out of your sleeve.
Yeah. But it was timely. It wasn't just completely out of the blue. It's like it was related to the Butterbeer Banter episode.
That's true. That's true.
It's clear enough, I think.
If you had done this like 3 weeks ago, we would have had a serious talk about what you're doing with the Muggle pool.
Yes. So I simply got to thinking, like, I wonder how many people have been to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was a Harry Potter fan long before, before the park was even created, for one. But then even once it was created, I didn't go right away.
Right.
I think we determined in that episode that it was the one in Orlando was created in 2010. I think.
Sounds right.
And I didn't make down there till 2014.
Right.
So it's 4 years before I got there. So there's a good chance that not everybody has been there. So I was curious.
Traveling is hard for some people.
Yeah. And so obviously you and I have both been there.
Right.
We understand that. So it turns out 43% of our audience has been there.
Oh, okay.
Well,
one of the two, right?
Yeah, I didn't specify which one.
Sure.
So either one works for me.
Yeah.
then the more I thought about these next answers, like one of them kind of overlaps the other two, and it's like, so it's really which one you could click on first.
Are you skewing the poll results, Matt?
Yeah, well, people even commented that they clicked on the wrong one.
Sure.
So it's like, next three answers are no, not yet, or not interested. Should have left the no out of there because you should just be answering not yet or not interested if you haven't been there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But 18% said no, 33% said not yet, which is always good to see, and 7% did actually say not interested. So I don't know if those are people who just saw the poll and aren't interested, or just they are fans that don't care to go to the theme park. I don't know. Could be
Maybe
either
they're
way.
afraid of dragons, Matt.
There you go. So a couple of comments on there. It says we got one from Brent. It says, "Wait, I said no, but I should have said not yet."
Wait, doesn't he live down in Florida?
I believe he does.
What are you doing with your life, Brent?
At least I assume he does. He's a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, so
That's true. I guess football isn't necessarily.
There's Packers fans in Florida.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's a lot of Tampa Bay fans elsewhere than Tampa Bay.
Sure. Not until they start winning something.
It's not a national team like your Packers.
Yeah. We also had a comment from James Holian. Hopefully one day, but I'm going to see Cursed Child later in the year, as well as visit the Warner Brothers studio tour. Which, man, so jealous.
I'm still super curious about this Cursed Child thing, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there. I have a feeling, since we have you hooked, once we get through the series, we're just going to keep continuing on with our reading. So
I just don't want to wait that long.
I know.
The zeitgeist is happening now, Matt. I want to be a part of it.
I know. Unfortunately, that's not like a one-off read that we can do in a week or something.
Yeah.
I think there'd be too much to discuss, so it wouldn't work so well.
I'll always have fantastic pieces.
But yeah, the Warner Brothers studio tour is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and unfortunately, it's over in England, so it's a little tougher for me to get to.
Sure.
Obviously, you and I both know James lives over there, so it's a little easier for him. But glad to see you're taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
I'll get there someday. As long as they keep it open, I will get there someday. It's just a matter of when.
Sure.
Long's Toys says, been to Orlando twice and Hollywood last year. Seriously, my favorite place ever, Universal Studios. Zach says, I was at the Orlando one. Within the first week, it was open, which was quite the experience when the main ride broke down.
Ooh. First week, ouch.
Yeah, first week is rough. Like I know rides break all the time at theme parks, more than most people realize. But yeah, first week, that's rough.
And you know, like that first week is like the diehard of the diehard fans.
Yeah.
You know, that have flocked there to welcome it into existence, and for that main ride to break, like that would have been like the most disheartening thing for people, I bet.
But at the same time, like unless they're under big time constraints, you know those fans are going to wait. Yeah,
but I mean, just still, you know, like...
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be disappointing, but still. Yeah. And Harry, HSJ the Third, says, one of my favorite places in a theme park, if you couldn't tell from my email, which we'll get to later.
Can't wait.
Yeah. So, once again, thank you for everybody who took part in that poll and sent in extra little comments as well. Always enjoy those.
Yeah, definitely. Did anybody respond by explaining to me what the dragon is all about?
No.
Dang it. You guys are disappointing me out there. I need some help.
No. They're being very good little listeners and not spoiling things for you.
I don't know.
But speaking of emails...
Actually, hold on. I do appreciate, I don't know if anybody has caught this on social media this last week, but you've been making, you've been taking pull quotes from these shows, basically the crazy stuff that I say, and
Sure.
turning them into graphics for people to laugh at and enjoy, which I have no problem with. But the latest one, about my, me saying something about like how Crookshanks is definitely more than just a cat.
Yeah.
Somebody responded with maybe it's a dog disguised as a cat. That was interesting because at first I was just like, oh, that's funny. But then I started sitting there and thinking about it. That's how crazy I am. Like, I'm taking, like, what's obviously somebody just messing with me as, like, potentially being real. And I'm like,
Yeah.
could the dog be disguised as a cat? How does that work? Could that happen in this magical world? I don't know. So, kudos to you guys. I mean, even if you're, like, trying to just, like, laugh along with me, you're still making me more crazy than I started out, so.
Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we did get one email I want to cover beforehand from Rhonda. I believe, unfortunately, you got her all confused now, because I'm pretty sure she is talking about Lee Jordan, but she refers to him as Dean a couple of times. Which
how is this my fault? Did I refer to him as Dean?
You had him mixed up one episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not this last episode, though.
No. I think we got you straightened out now.
Okay.
But like you hadn't heard from him in a while, and then I think we got a mention of Dean Thomas.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And you thought it was Lee Jordan.
Well, when you go like an entire book without hearing a character's name,
I know.
It's rough, Matt.
In any case, she says, after listening to episode 29, I had a couple of thoughts about that I would like to share. The first thing is regarding Mugglepole. I missed it last week, and given the choices, I would have to say NASCAR as well, just because it seems the most challenging for, she says, Dean, but I'm going to go with Lee to make interesting. But if I could have chosen golf, I would have, because to me that is the most boring sport on the planet, and I would love to hear Lee's thoughts for an entire 18 holes.
Could I respond to that?
Yeah.
There is no chance in the world Lee Jordan would be able to call golf. That kid is way too excitable, and I do not think he could bring it down to the monotone voice that you would have to do while calling a golf match. Look at that shot. It's amazing. He can't do that, Matt. He is incapable of toning it. McGonagall can't even make him calm down, and she's standing right next to him, beating him over the head. There's no way he could do it for a full 18 holes at golf. Although, maybe if he was doing golf, he might actually bring more interest to it. So I could see that point.
Yeah. I think that's what she's going after. I personally did consider putting golf on that list as one of the choices, but it just, that would have meant removing like one of the major sports that I wanted on there. So it's like, I can't get too eclectic with this.
Shots fired at golf.
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore. He could call a Happy Gilmore match.
There you go.
Yeah.
She says the second thing I wanted to mention was about the Boggarts. Wouldn't it be awesome if Pottermore had a quiz in which you first answer questions about your fears, and when you're done, an image, preferably animated, was generated based on your answers?
No, that would not be okay.
She says, since my biggest fear is of heights, then I could totally imagine a big squishy marshmallow creature catching me. Maybe we can talk to the folks at Pottermore into creating a new quiz.
No, I don't need that in my life at all, Matt. That is too much. I wouldn't be able to handle it.
I could see that. Yeah, I'm feeling a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah. I mean, many people deal with fears differently. Like, some people, like, they're okay seeing, like, pictures or images of their fears, like, as long as it's not in real life. Not me. Like, I have a hard time seeing images of the things that absolutely terrify me, which are bizarre in their own right. But, no thanks. No, we don't need that.
All right. Well, for the time being, we don't have that, so
Thank goodness.
you're all good.
Let's talk about this Patronus quiz, shall we?
Not quite yet.
Dang it!
We can definitely get there, but not quite yet.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So, I think we are finally ready to get to chapter 17.
Chapter 17. Finally.
Titled Cat, Rat, and Dog, which I have to admit, right after we finished our last episode, I told you, you'll never guess what the title of the next chapter is. And I read it to you, and you just couldn't believe it.
No.
It's like, yeah.
No.
We're
and
getting
that honestly,
answers.
might have actually triggered subconsciously my whole thinking about it the very next day.
I believe that. Yeah.
What a straightforward title to a chapter.
Kind of, but at the same time, not really. Like she's telling you it's going to involve these animals,
right?
But
I guess for the first time, like, it's her acknowledging that these creatures are important to the story instead of just ancillary background characters. Like, you've been trying to make me think this whole time. You're just like,
Sure.
It's just a cat. It's just a rat. Why do you care? Just stop worrying about it. It's just a cat, Matt or Josh. Like, no, Matt. These are characters, right?
Yeah.
And this is like the first time that she's acknowledging, like, yeah, there's definitely more to them.
Yep.
And you're about to find out.
I'll give you that.
My first note in here was just like the same that I've written pretty much the entire book, of just like, of course Crookshanks is around. Like, Crookshanks in this book is the Lockhart of last book.
Yep.
Every time you turn around, there he is, just
Yep.
doing whatever he does. Not as
All over the
annoying,
place.
I will say.
Well, thankfully.
But it's just like, oh, there's another Crookshanks mention. That's interesting.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling did me dirty here.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm not happy with her.
Why is that?
The end of chapter 16 was the assumption of our dearest hippogriff friend having his head cut off.
Yes.
We thought Buckbeak was dead, right?
I believe we still think Buckbeak is dead.
Well, I'm saying at the end of 16, we thought that.
Okay. Yes.
So naturally, you would think that we would have some resolution to that immediately following in the next chapter. And JK is like, you know what? I'm just going to go another 2 chapters and we're not even going to talk about it. We're just going to
because
make you sit there.
Buckbeak is dead. Why? Like, what is there to cover? She told you what happened.
No, she didn't. She did not say anything about an axe going through a neck. The kids assumed that's what they heard, Matt. And we heard, like, screaming, like, we could assume that's Hagrid, like, being distressed or whatever. But there is not a sentence written saying, R.I.P. Buckbeak, he's dead, deal with it. So that's just, like, that's wide open at this point. I don't know what would have happened. I don't know why he wouldn't be dead. Okay. I just don't like the vagueness of the kids heard a noise and they could assume that he's dead and now they're going to cry about it for a little bit. But then we're going to move on and do some other things because all this other crazy stuff is happening. This is the whole, I got something in my left hand, but don't look what's going on in my right hand because I'm pulling something out from behind my back that you shouldn't be seeing. That's what she's doing here, Matt, and I don't appreciate it. I'm on to her and her little tricks.
I mean, you could say that, but this is all happening so fast. Like, normally, we've said before, like, one chapter, from chapter to chapter, we can jump a month or 2 in the timeline.
Yeah.
We'll change seasons and all that.
Sure.
But starting with last week, going all the way through these chapters and continuing into the next week's chapters, we're still all on the same day.
I know.
We haven't, like, this is all a lot of stuff happening one right after the other. It's just, it's not. There is no time to grieve Buckbeak. There is no time to figure out what actually happened. That's what happened, and now this is happening.
As a writer, I feel like if she wanted the readers to know with certainty that Buckbeak was dead, it could have happened. And because she didn't make it happen, she's leaving things to the imagination, Matt. And she's done this before, and I'm not letting her slide with it because 2 chapters! 2 chapters! We read 2 chapters this week, and I still think Buckbeak's dead. And I don't like that because, you know what? Knowing her, he's not going to be. Somehow, some way, we're going to have a rejuvenation of Buckbeak. He's on the cover of the book, Matt. And I'm sorry, I'm not letting that point go.
You assume. I told you there's more than one hippogriff.
I know, but none of the other hippogriffs...
He doesn't have a collar that says Buckbeak on it.
Well, do all? Maybe he lost it by the axe. I don't know, Matt. I'm just saying. I mean, the openness of it is just driving me crazy.
I will give you this, too. A reminder that J.K. has specifically said a few times that these were written as children's books.
So she doesn't want to, like, just blatantly say, hey, this thing got its head cut off?
I mean, so you won't see too many, like, gruesome descriptions.
Oh, should I remind you about the vomiting of slugs that she made me suffer through an entire book of?
You are the only person I know who has reacted so violently to the slugs.
That's because when people are reading the book normally, Matt, they could read through the entire book in like a day. So like the slug references like are like quick and move on to the next thing. Me, sure. I have to dwell on them. And it's too much. So I understand what you're saying about it being a children's book. However, I don't trust her. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
I also don't remember Dumbledore being at Hagrid's for this whole thing.
Yeah, Dumbledore came down with the minister.
I remember the minister, and I remember the people that came to watch the execution.
Yep, it was the minister, McNair, the executioner, and Dumbledore.
Yeah, I definitely do not remember Dumbledore being there.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Like, I think it was just a brief mention that he was there with them, but
yeah,
he didn't, like, talk or anything.
No, it must have been it. And it didn't seem like he's too important to what's going on right now, but that was like a brief mention of him being there. I'm like, wait a second. I don't remember that happening.
Yeah.
That Whomping Willow.
Yeah, so you mentioned Crookshanks being there first.
Okay, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And Harry's first thought is, can Crookshanks see us?
Yes. Right.
Because they're at this point, they're still under the invisibility cloak.
Mm-hmm.
And I that got me thinking too, like, do you think Crookshanks can see them? Because you've mentioned a couple times, Crookshanks seems to be special somehow.
Right.
Like, we know Mrs. Norris, the other cat we've seen in this story consistently, can't see through the invisibility cloak. Right. However, she always seemed to be able to kind of sense when something was around.
Right.
Even if she couldn't see it, and she would run off and get Filch. And then Filch would be searching for stuff, even if he couldn't see it. It's like he knew there could be invisible things, whatever they be. I think he usually assumed it was like a ghost or something. But
he also has nothing better to do at this time.
Yeah. Well, that is his job, really. So,
allegedly.
Yeah. So, like, Mrs. Norris couldn't, but is Crookshanks different in some respect? Can she see them? I guess my question: do you think Crookshanks could see them, or was Crookshanks just sensing something and could maybe smell them, or smell the rat? Or
I think it was more of a sense, maybe hearing, possibly, feeling with the whiskers, type of thing. Like, I don't think it was straight on visual. I see 3 people and a rat there. It's more like,
yeah,
there's something going on here, but I'm not quite sure what exactly yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do make a good point about the sound, because they weren't necessarily trying to be quiet, even though they were under it.
Yeah.
Under the invisibility cloak, and that
they're-
doesn't silence you. It just
Right.
makes you invisible.
And they're far enough from the hut to where they wouldn't have like tried to be the most quiet they possibly could.
Yeah. Because then Hermione eventually just like talks to Crookshanks and like, go away, go away.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, they weren't really trying to hide from Crookshanks.
No. Seems ridiculous that they would. I mean, if they knew what I knew, Matt, they definitely would have been. But
yeah.
Yeah, the Whomping Willow. They'll fight
Back
anything,
again.
anyone.
Yep. Yeah.
Just punch
Never
fools.
anything happened. Nothing good ever happens around this tree.
No, absolutely not. Like, it is a mean thing that just punches and beats up anything it can.
Yeah, and honestly, it's this chapter here. Like, we've seen the Whomping Willow a couple of times, and it's like we never really get a super clear description of where it is.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's like on the Hogwarts grounds,
Right?
and it's not immediately by the castle, but it's kind of by the forest, because like we saw in the second book when the car flies into it and gets beat up, and then it drives off into the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always assumed that the forest is kind of close to it, and they had to like walk to the castle. So that's has to be a distance away there. But like then we get this chapter here, and they're just walking back from Hagrid's hut, and all of a sudden they're by the Whomping Willow.
Yeah. Oh!
Like, how is this laid out?
In my head, I have a pretty clear picture of how I think it's laid out. Just by the descriptions. I don't know how right I am or not, but like I see like Hagrid's hut like relatively close to the forest because he likes to go in there and hang out with the animals and such.
Sure.
Not like on the edge of it, but close enough to where it's an easy walking distance, you know.
Yeah.
But I see like the forest like kind of like wrapping around the perimeter of Hogwarts, and it almost feels like this Whomping Willow like would make like a perfect triangle between like Hagrid's hut and the castle and the willow tree, and it's kind of near the perimeter of the forest, but not directly next to Hagrid's hut, not directly next to the castle, close enough to the castle to where it's a walking distance if you were to need to, I don't know, escort somebody there in the middle of the night per se. But yeah, like in my head, I have like this weird map that I've drawn of like how I see it laid out, with like the lake and the giant squid off kind of in the distance there. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
If it's possible for you, if it's not too much trouble, I'd like to see if you could even just sketch out a rough map.
I could do that.
I personally would be interested in seeing what you have in your head. just general. I mean, it can be X's and O's and labeled. Like I don't care. It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Oh man, I'm going to show you exactly where the giant squid hangs out during the day.
Yep.
And
yeah, I'm sure you will.
The flower worm farm and oh yeah.
All right. I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can do that. No problem. This whole part about like Ron getting attacked by the dog and then dragged off to the tree, and this whole chaotic scene that was going on, right?
Yeah.
Ron broke his leg, which is gruesome.
Yeah, I just thought about that after I just mentioned there's not too many gruesome scenes, but
right.
Like yeah, this is about as bad as we get. The description of his leg being wrapped around this root and then snap.
Right. Yeah.
Ooh, like you can picture that, and it's not pretty.
Now, the way the rest was written when he like finally disappears, and gets like pulled away, it sounded, and like reflecting on it now, I think it was written as like all that they could see was like his foot, and then all of a sudden like his foot was gone. But the first time like I read through it, it kind of read as if like his foot was suddenly no longer visible, like his foot was eaten off, or bit off, and I'm like, oh my god, Ron lost his foot. I started panicking for Ron. I'm like, this is the worst thing. How is this gonna like?
Yeah, not quite.
No, okay, yeah, like reflecting on it, I'm like, okay, it was just like that was like the last visible part of him before he was pulled away. But reading through it the first time, it sounded like he just lost his foot. Like he broke his leg and then his foot came off. I'm like, oh my god. Like,
yeah,
Madame Pomfrey could like have a career of just healing this trio.
Yes, it's true.
So I don't know what kind of magic spell would be able to bring his foot back from a dog eating it, but I was very concerned about Ron's well-being after this.
Yeah, the way it's written is a little wonky because like you get Ron was fighting furiously, but his head and torso were slipping out of sight, and then there's this paragraph of Harry interjecting and trying to save him. And then we jump back to, and now all they could see was one of Ron's legs, which he had been hooked around a root. And so, like, it's broken up there. Mm-hmm. And so by that time you've forgotten that, his head and torso were slipping out of sight. And all they could see was his leg, and like, wait a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I started, like, going into, like, this whole weird, like, Star Wars thing of, like, was he going to have, like a wooden foot or, like, a robotic foot? Like, do they have robots in the Wizarding World? How does this work? Luke losing his hand type of thing, and
yeah,
then I quickly realized that like no, he still has his foot. That's okay.
Yeah. For the record, I'm pretty sure they would not go robotic because they don't really do electricity.
That doesn't necessarily mean it would have to be ran on electricity.
Yeah, but like that type of technology.
Sure.
I guess I don't associate with Wizarding World. They come up with other solutions, and their solutions typically involve some sort of magic. And if they need some other part or prop or something, it usually feels a little more medieval.
I'd like to see like a steamboot reboot of steampunk reboot of Harry Potter.
Because like we've talked about that before, like in the castle, like they use torches and stuff and candles, and it's just it feels medieval, but since it's magical, it brings it enough into working in our century.
Sure. Yeah,
but
just have a wooden foot. You're right.
But you're not going to see like cell phones.
No, right. Sorry, Ron. No robot foot for you.
No.
So lots of chaos going on, lots of just uncertainty as to who's chasing who and what and why and how and who's getting dragged and where they're going. And, immediately once they got in this hole, I'm like, okay, Marauder's map. I remember this was like a tunnel that was blocked off by the tree. I'm thinking about all of a sudden how much Lupin knew about the tree. Weirdly enough, like earlier in the book, he was talking about how it was like planted when he came to Hogwarts, and he remembers it vividly. And it's like, looking back, that guy was talking an awful lot about the Whomping Willow. Not many other people in school care that much about this tree, but he seemed to know an awful lot for no particular reason whatsoever.
Yeah, the only other person we've heard talk about it much at all. You remember who that was?
Snape.
Yep.
Yeah. Which also makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense now.
Again, just when you think little details are completely unnecessary, they turn out to be very important key pieces of a story.
Yep.
Dang you, JK.
But yeah, this tree, we learned a little something more about it this time. It has a magic knot.
Yeah.
That you can press and essentially like freeze it for a second.
Right.
So in my mind, this is essentially every movie ever that has evil mad genius scientist guy who builds a machine and puts a self-destruct button on it.
The infamous kill switch.
Yeah. Why would you put a self-destruct button on it? Like that I mean, it kind of we kind of get to see its purpose here, especially since it doesn't completely destroy the tree.
Right.
But it temporarily disables the tree And it's like, who would put that there? Like, it feels like there should be a different way around that. Like you should have to learn a spell or something to freeze the tree, or I don't know.
Sure. But I think it's more or less like, do you really want to get that close to try to press it in the first place? Like, even if you know it's there, like, is it still worth it to you to try?
Yeah.
Knowing what that tree is capable of doing? You're just like, you know what? You go about your day, tree. I'm staying back.
So my next question, though, is, do all Whomping Willows have a magic knot?
I think so. I envision them all having them. Yeah. I feel like there's a purpose to their existence, and I feel like the people or beings that would be responsible for the trees and taking care of their livelihood would need some sort of fail-safe way to get to the tree without, completely being demolished by it.
Yeah, do you think many people actually needed to get near these trees?
You never know.
These trees seem fairly self-sufficient.
Yeah, but like,
and in this case, really just used as a form of defense. Like this is it, just to stop people from getting to this tunnel entrance.
Sure, but what if it got into like a fight with like a giant security troll, right? And it lost some branches and it got damaged. It may have won the fight, and it played good defense, but it still needed a little bit of mending on the side,
There you go. Remember after they flew the car into it?
Mm-hmm.
And we read that the Whomping Willow had its branches and slings?
Right, yeah. How'd it get slings? Somebody had to sling it up.
Like, did they have to force the slings on it? Does the Whomping Willow not whomp everybody? Was it too incapacitated at that point that it said, okay, yeah, do your thing?
No, I think it still was going to try to fight no matter how many broken limbs it had. And the only way
do you think they had to press the knot then?
Absolutely.
To put the slings on them?
Somebody did. Madame Pomfrey knows what's going on. She's a smart cookie, Matt. I don't put anything past her.
I don't know if she would have known that. I'm sure Dumbledore would, but...
Yeah, but, I mean, Dumbledore could have told her about it.
It's true.
I mean, she may not have, known the knowledge previously before slinging the tree, but I don't think Dumbledore's out there with slings. He's he likes to give people tasks and odd jobs. He's not a doer, Matt.
Yep.
So, fascinating to think about, though.
Yeah.
Do the trees have, these little knots from, when they're saplings? Do they grow them once they get to the point where they're dangerous?
That's what I don't know. And how do you know where this knot is? Does this somehow stay stationary?
That's part of the fun.
Or does it grow with the tree?
Sure.
You would think, knowing how trees typically grow,
mm-hmm.
Obviously this is a magical tree, so things could be different. But does it stay because this one seemed to be at ground level,
right?
Actually, it almost seemed to be part of the root system or something. So
mm-hmm.
maybe it would grow down instead of up. But yeah, it's whatever the case may be. It was always seemed to be accessible.
Sure, thankfully.
Yeah.
Could you imagine going out there expecting to find the knot and it just not be there anymore? Be a bad day for you.
Quite problematic.
Yeah. So the kids and animals make their way into some structure of some sort. My immediate thought, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh boy, we are in the Shrieking Shack.
You got it.
It just, they started describing it. I was like, I think I know where we are. Yes, they weren't, Matt.
Yeah, they gave you all the clues you needed. It was heading towards Hogsmeade, and you've been out there before, and so there's a structure. It doesn't seem like it's been used much. No one's really been here. Yeah.
And you know what it sounds like to me as they're describing the inside of this Shrieking Shack? And they're describing all the broken furniture and things are kind of dilapidated, but it's still functional as a structure, but not everyday living type of thing.
Yeah.
Two things popped into my head. Frat House and Clubhouse. Both are pretty much the same thing, just for
different age groups.
Different age groups. But those are the two things that immediately popped in my head with this shack.
Yeah. Which actually aren't too far off.
And it's just like the description of it, I'm like, man, I would totally turn that into a clubhouse if I was a kid. Like, that is the coolest place to chill. Because no one else would be coming in. No one's bothering you there. Okay. Then we started getting into some things, Matt.
We did.
Some big things.
Yep.
The dog, which had dragged poor Ron, poor wooden foot Ron there, was no more.
It's true.
The dog was gone. In his place, Sirius Black.
The one and only.
Dun, dun, dun! Incredible reveal.
You so many times got so close. I'm trying to think if you ever actually nailed, like, you kept saying, like, it wasn't a Grimm, it was a werewolf, and I'm trying to think if you ever actually put Sirius and the dog together. Like, I think you put Sirius and the cat together.
Because I didn't really care about the dog until after last episode. And that's when I started thinking about it as a werewolf, because the descriptions of the dog never really were specific as to, like, the looks of it. So it still felt like it could look canine in appearance from a distance or in the dark, and still be a werewolf and still look like a dog to somebody who wasn't expecting to see a werewolf.
That's the thing, too, is we haven't really gotten a clear description of what J.K. Rowling's werewolves look like.
No.
They've just been mentioned a couple of times, but that's something that can vary from culture to culture, storyline to storyline.
Sure.
That there is some variance in what a werewolf is.
Yeah.
Or how it looks. So, yeah. Could it look like a canine type creature? Definitely.
Right. I mean, close enough to where somebody could assume it was a dog and not immediately think, oh, that's a wolf, you know?
Yeah, because he always sees it at night. He always sees it, like, near the edge of a forest or in the bushes, and it's black, so that doesn't help.
Right. And after this, like, I started thinking, like, in my head, like, after I started piecing, like, the werewolf thing together, like, the image I had in my head of this dog particular was something different, but now I kind of see it as, like, more of, like, a Rottweiler type of dog.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of the look and feel of the dog, I think. But yeah, like, from a distance in the dark, like, that could be taken several different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sirius Black being the dog, huh? So it's definitely, he's been following Harry since the beginning.
Absolutely.
As we suspected. Still, at this point, a lot of questions. A lot of questions going on here. Yeah,
there's a lot of questions, but we still got book left, so
yeah. Well, I meant just in this moment of, like, the reveal of Sirius Black being the dog. It's like, cool, but
explain yourself.
X, Y, and Z still needs to be settled over here on this side, you know? But, like, this is, like, you know, the first time we have officially met Sirius Black.
It's true. Yeah. We've just heard mentions of him, and Sirius Black was in the castle, but we didn't actually have any scene with him in it, other than flashes of the dog. Like, Harry saw the dog, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
Harry saw the dog, then it was gone.
Right. So it was big. It was big. And then they kind of went this route of I don't know why. I see so many similarities between these stories and the Star Wars stories, but, like, I immediately started thinking of, like, Vader trying to coerce Luke into, like, going to the dark side and just, like, unleashing his rage and anger, like,
Sure.
Like, go ahead, yeah, go do it. Like, punch me, attack me, let go, and just full on embrace the dark side that you have within you because you're so mad, you're so angry. The dark side is like feeding off of this. Go for it, and like Harry getting all worked up and just getting like in his like rage mentality that we've seen already in this book. I was just like, oh my god, Harry's going to the dark side. Like, this is how, like he's like borderline about to be a Sith here. Like, this is super weird.
Hey, you don't know how this story ends.
No. But the comparisons of like embracing the rage and the anger, like it's not the Harry Potter that we're used to seeing, other than when we're talking about his parents and like the anger and rage that he's kind of developed about as he learns what happened to him,
Yeah.
But it's a darker Harry Potter. It's not one that's rational. It's not one that's worrying about the consequences or the outcome of anything. He's emotional to the point of like being off the scale. He can't control himself, and it's just blind rage and anger that is just feeding this. So kind of scary, thankfully he's a dumb 13-year-old and all he could do is just like punch a guy in the face. Like, he's just like, I'm going to fist fight this guy. It's like, well, you probably shouldn't do that. Like, I understand like wanting to get a good hit on him, but do you really want to go that route? Like, I don't know if you have enough testosterone going on right now to really, keep you going through the duration of this fight you're about to get into.
Yeah, I did like the description in that paragraph. He had forgotten about magic.
Yeah.
He had forgotten that he was a short and skinny in 13, whereas Black was a tall, full-grown man. It's like, yeah, this isn't going to turn out well. But
no. I mean, he has some gumption behind him, don't get me wrong, but, it's just, it's not going to end well, Harry. Just, what are you doing, Yeah. But he couldn't control it. Like, that was just, like, that had to happen. And then we had Crookshanks attacking Harry.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, hold on. what is going on here? Like, I'm not comprehending the whole thing that's about to happen. Like,
yeah, this scene in this room, it's a small room, a lot of people, and a lot of action.
Yeah.
Very quickly, and so it's one of those where writing almost starts to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Just because so much needs to happen like at the same time, and
right.
There's only so fast you can read. You have to read it in this order that's written out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
But and you have to try to put all this together in your head. Whereas if this were a movie, you could just show all this right away, and it's like, oh, that's what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas we're sitting here like reading for 2 pages and trying to sort it out in our head the entire time. What's going on?
Yeah, I am absolutely looking forward to seeing this in the movie. Like. And don't tell me it's not going to be in the movie, because this is a crucial scene to the story that I can't see them just forgetting about.
Yeah, Sirius Black isn't in the movie. Don't worry.
Right? Yeah. Whoops. Casting issues, and but yeah, like you said, like we had to have like constant explanations of like Hermione trying to hold Harry back and being super worked up, and we had Ron trying to walk on his leg and be like a hero. And it's like, Ron, you have a broken leg. Just sit down and relax for a second, But we had these constant descriptions of where they were and what they were doing, and what Sirius Black was doing and how heavy he was breathing, and Crookshanks jumping. Like, it was just chaos, just absolute chaos. That, like you said, words definitely didn't do the scene justice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's only so much you can do with words, but
right. Yeah.
I think using the word chaos is a good description of what went on here.
Yeah. So we have Crookshanks defending Sirius Black, attacking Harry, which we haven't really seen before. It seems like Crookshanks and Harry were understanding to each other's space. Like, I don't think Harry particularly liked Crookshanks.
Yeah, I would consider the relationship very neutral.
Yeah.
We've seen Crookshanks lash out towards Ron and his rat.
Right.
And then we've seen Crookshanks hanging out with the dog.
Mm-hmm.
we knew that much.
Right.
But as far as Crookshanks directly interacting with Harry, we haven't really seen too much yet.
Yeah, and even when like Harry would step in when Crookshanks was going after Scabbers or Ron, like Crookshanks didn't ever feel like it was on the brink of attacking Harry. It was just like,
yeah,
Harry was Switzerland in the whole thing.
There you go.
It's calm and peaceful. Even if he was taking sides, Crookshanks still wasn't bothered by him. So like to see him just straight up attack Harry, it's like, okay, well, something's going on here.
Yeah, number one priority is more to protect Sirius at this point, regardless of who's attacking.
Right. So then I'm bracing myself, Matt. I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the moment that Lupin is going to transform out of his cat-like state that is Crookshanks and reveal himself. But I'm just like, as this is happening, I'm thinking, okay, this is a real possibility now. But at the same time, why is Lupin attacking Harry? That made me super confused. And at this point, this whole chaotic thing going on, I had completely forgotten about the whole werewolf prediction that I had a few days earlier. It was gone.
Yeah.
Out of my mind, Matt.
Yeah.
And then it circled back to where I thought it would eventually lead to.
Yeah.
Lupin is a werewolf.
He is, indeed.
Turns out Hermione already knew this.
Yep.
Because Hermione is crazy.
It's true. I just love how time after time Lupin is just so smooth. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. He's so smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just takes everything in stride. Like Hermione throws all these accusations at him, and it's just like, not at all up to your usual standards, Hermione. Only 1 out of 3. Like, what? She just accused you 3 times, and not quite good enough, Hermione.
Yeah. So yeah, this is interesting. And somebody threw out, it must have been Lupin, was explaining how Dumbledore and like the faculty knew about him being a werewolf, and like how everything has kind of happened. And like somebody like pointed out that like Dumbledore would have had to have been crazy to let a werewolf be a teacher, but they were able to manage it and all that stuff. And yeah, I still think Dumbledore is kind of crazy. Like, time and time again, he is proving to make some very questionable decisions as far as his faculty choices.
Thank you for bringing that up. I made a note that you would bring that up.
Of course I'm going to, Matt.
You would question Dumbledore's hiring decisions.
And I know how this is going to end. I'm going to question it, and I'm going to be really mad about Dumbledore and the choices he makes, and then it's going to turn out that Dumbledore knew what he was doing all along and totally proved me wrong. But in this moment, Matt, did he really think having a werewolf as a teacher was going to be the best for business here? I mean, he must have thought so.
Not necessarily. That's why he... Well, that's why I spread the word.
Yeah.
Because he didn't think everybody would be okay with it.
Sure. Still. It's just, and it's just, the whole thing that we're about to get into with like everybody involved and whatnot, like it is very clear to me that we are seeing the path as to which we are going to get a new Defense of the Dark Arts teacher next year.
Yeah.
So
possible.
It's just Dumbledore. He means well, right? I think this is why Hagrid and him get along so well. They mean well, right? And,
sure.
And usually things work out for the best for both of them in the end of whatever they mean well of. But in the moment, there's still a lot to reveal. There's still a lot I don't know, and that's because you made me do a cliffhanger on chapter 18. So I don't know necessarily as to why all of this is actually happening and what the full spectrum of this story is right now. But I definitely have to question Dumbledore's decisions here. And I think Snape does too. I think Snape's like, you know what? This Dumbledore character is something else. He's making me make this potion to keep this teacher from turning into a werewolf on the regular. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I would agree that Snape is definitely on that side of the thing. It's because Snape, well, I mean, he's always going to be anti. He's going to find a way or a reason to be anti whoever he's hiring because he wants the job.
We just need to give him the job and see what he does with it. Like, I feel like the more and more we go down this road, like, the angrier and more bitter Snape is going to become and more resentful he is.
But do you really think that giving him the job is a good idea?
Compared to the other three at this point? Like, don't get me wrong. I still love Lupin. I don't know what his deal is, but I just know...
Lupin has been a great teacher so far.
He has. He absolutely has. But I'm also thinking about the dangers of having a werewolf as a teacher. Like, what if Snape gets sick and he's not able to make a potion on time? Or whatever the case is, right? And he can't drink a potion, and he has to transform. And then we have a werewolf running around Hogwarts, eating kids. Not good, Matt. Just not good.
For the record, he does still transform. You did catch that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a controlled transformation.
Yeah, the potion allows him to keep his mind. He doesn't get the wolf's mind really anymore.
Right. And that's what I'm most concerned about, you know. If he was just running around Hogwarts, a feral wolf snatching up kids, we're going to have a lot less kids at Hogwarts.
So I'm curious. We talked about Hermione. She was able to figure it all out, piece it all together.
Uh-huh.
Did you catch any of the triggers? Or like, which of them jumped out to you? Like, I know in your Muggle theories in particular, you kind of put a few of them together.
Mm-hmm. It was really hard to follow it. Everything was moving so fast.
Yeah.
But, okay, so she figured it out when Snape gave them the homework about werewolves, where they had to write the essay on werewolves, and that's when she started doing research on werewolves, which then she deducted all of the symptoms of being a werewolf fit in with the symptoms that Lupin was going through that she had recognized.
Yep.
And then, like, the other big thing, which was kind of very quickly glanced over, was the boggart. When Lupin was fighting it, was like we had seen it as like an orb.
Yes.
And that was a moon.
It got mentioned twice, and I went back just to check the wording on it. And the first time she calls it a silvery white orb, and the second time just a silvery orb.
Right, but
and so, like,
never a description of anything other than like just an orb.
Yeah, because everybody just got a quick glance at it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, unless you knew what it was or you were expecting to see something, like if you were trying to piece something together.
Sure.
Like personally, if I were one of the students in that class, I would have wanted to know. If I'm 13-year-old boy, I would want to know what my teacher is most afraid of.
Right.
I'd be interested in that information.
Sure. But at the same time, they're also dealing with the things that they are most afraid of. So
it's true.
Like they're trying to decompress and unpack that they're going through. A few episodes ago, like, you had mentioned, like, specifically mentioned Lupin's this white orb that he was afraid of. Like you called it out. I think we were like moving past it, and you like wanted to pay particular attention to it, and I was like, yeah, it was a white orb. Like, I don't care. Like, that doesn't mean, like, I might have had this moment of, yeah, I wonder why he would be afraid of a white orb. And then it was like, well, Lupin's a weird dude, so I don't, maybe it's Trelawney's crystal ball or something, for all I know.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just afraid of crazy faculties. Who knows? I didn't put much thought into it, is what I'm saying.
Fair enough.
Threw it out there for me to hit, and I was just like, no, that's not my pitch.
Yep.
So
it's the way things work.
So very fascinating that that was kind of there the whole time. Very quickly, never much discussion about it. It kind of came and went quickly, and even the description of like how Hermione figured it out was not very elaborately discussed or explained.
Sure. Yeah, it's basically she went to her books.
Yeah.
And did research. She
Hermione
went to the library.
was being Hermione.
Hermione went to the library and figured it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shocking.
Yep.
The overall theme of Harry Potter franchise is Hermione likes to study. So we're getting all this just flood of information. Then it turns out, Moony, not Moony, Lupin knew all of this with the Marauders map. He was watching the activity on the map. He was following everybody there. Harry's like, hey, how'd you get the map to work? He's like, because I wrote it, kid. I was part of the OG Marauders.
Yep.
I am Moony.
It's so good.
So good. It's like, well, yeah, that makes total sense.
It does.
Everything
It makes
about
a lot
this
of sense.
makes so much sense. It's unreal. Still a lot of questions to be answered at this point, Matt. But it's like, okay, Lupin is Moony. He's a werewolf. He's part of the OG Marauders.
Yep.
We've got a lot of things going on here. Okay.
We do.
Then Scabbers is brought back in the mix. Just when you thought it was safe and sound to not think about that rat any longer, Scabbers is brought back up.
Yeah.
Scabbers is not who we thought Scabbers was.
Not so much.
Turns out, Scabbers is allegedly Peter Pettigrew, who should be dead right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And of all people, Sirius Black should be the one to think he's dead.
Right. Well, actually, in the next chapter, the line, like my favorite line of this entire 2 chapters was, I want to commit the murder I was in prison for.
Yep. It like, I don't know if the in the wizarding world they have such things as double jeopardy,
right?
But it's especially that's essentially what we're looking at here.
Sure.
And he's like he's already served a sentence for that, so might as well go do it now because what are you gonna do? Charge me for killing the same guy twice?
I mean, I kind of feel like he's going back to Azkaban either way. Like at this point, But
Yeah.
then, like, well, then would he if he didn't actually kill Peter Pettigrew? But then, like, he definitely still wants to kill him, so maybe he's going to just make his way back anyway. So it cracked me up that he was like, I was in prison for this. I want to at least commit the crime that I'm been sitting in here for.
Yes.
Good for Sirius Black. That's a man of getting it done attitude. I like it. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time 100% remembering what I should remember about Peter Pettigrew.
Okay.
What we've already known. Am I making this fact up in my head or not? He was the disciple of not Sirius Black, of Voldemort. Am I making that up? Do I know that?
You're making that up.
Where did I think about?
We know that he hero worshipped James and Sirius.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I knew he was worshiping somebody, and for some reason, Voldemort was stuck in my head because we haven't really heard anything from him in this book. Okay, it was Sirius Black. That's why. Yeah, because he wanted to be part of them.
He wanted to be in the trio essentially.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, or the third part of the trio, depending how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But James and Sirius were the guys back in their day.
Right.
They were top of the class. They were the cool kids. They were the people everybody wanted to hang around. And Peter Pettigrew was the small, scrawny guy who didn't so much like I think I almost compared him to like Neville.
Yes.
Yeah, well, actually, oh yeah,
A cross between Neville
and Colin Creevy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting here, I'm like
you said, yeah, we really haven't heard much from Voldemort in this book yet.
No.
So yeah,
but this is the problem of like introducing a character and then like not talking about a character for like 15 chapters.
Yeah.
Just
kind of forget about him
a little bit, you know, like, and I felt like I should have remembered who Peter Pettigrew was because they made such a big deal about this reveal, and I was sitting there like, man, what did he do? Why was he allegedly got killed by Sirius Black? I remember that, but then like anything past that, I couldn't remember. So I think I was just like starting to fill in the facts that I didn't know with just stuff that would make sense in my head.
Like, here are names that I do know. Let's put them in the blanks.
Why would somebody want to kill somebody else? Probably because Voldemort's involved somehow. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So okay, that it was interesting to have the Scabbers reveal as Peter Pettigrew. I wish at the moment I would have remembered exactly who Peter Pettigrew was. I think it would have been more impactful to me, but it was still refreshing to know that Scabbers was actually somebody other than just Scabbers.
Yeah.
And everything, all the pieces are starting to fall into place here, Matt.
Yeah. Like it kind of explains the whole when they took him to the pet shop, it's like, how old is he? And it's like 12, and like that the average lifespan of a rat is like 3 years or something, and like he shouldn't be alive anymore. But
but he's never like really displayed any magical powers like all like the magical pets would normally do.
Yeah.
Well, it's because he's a wizard in disguise.
Yeah, makes a little more sense if you think about it that way.
Now again, we're still just assuming. Like, we still don't have any confirmation whatsoever. Like, all we have is Lupin and Sirius Black's word that this stupid little rat is actually somebody that he was supposed to kill before.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we don't know anything for sure, but that all seems to fit.
I trust Lupin enough to feel like that's probably true, but just saying, throwing that out there, we don't actually know for sure.
Very true.
That leads us into Chapter 18.
Chapter 18. Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs.
My first note, Matt, upon learning the name of this chapter.
Yes.
Okay, we know Moony is a werewolf. Yep. Makes sense.
Yes.
Totally makes sense. Wormtail.
Yep.
Is Peter Pettigrew.
Okay.
I would assume. I don't know if that's actually confirmed or if I'm just filling in blanks here.
Yep.
Because, you know, also rat. And I think I even called this, like, when we learned, like, the nicknames. I think I even said something about a Wormtail sounding like a rat or a mouse or something.
Maybe?
I might be making that up. Maybe I was... You probably just dismissed it as Josh being crazy at the time.
Well, yeah, I know you got really, really close to calling this.
Okay.
And I don't recall how exact you were.
No. I know what I was doing. I was trying to assign houses to the 4.
Yeah, there you go.
And Wormtail and Slytherin, so... Again, I have no idea if the houses mean anything at this point to these 4. But so Wormtail, rat, Peter Pettigrew. Okay, got it. We know Sirius Black is the dog and nickname Padfoot. Totally makes sense. Okay, I get that. So then we have Prongs.
Yeah.
Who's Prongs? And who's Crookshanks? Crookshanks is not a cat, Matt, and I refuse to admit or accept anything that tells me Crookshanks is still just a cat. Like, at this point, even through the end of chapter 18, we have not seen any transformation. We have not seen any reveal that Crookshanks is anything other than a cat. I understand that, and I know the arguments you're going to throw at me when I say this stuff. However, Crookshanks is not just a cat. He's not just Sirius Black's cat that he's been, like they go back. They have a history of some sort. Crookshanks is not a cat. I mean, Obviously he's in cat form. I'm not denying that part.
Yes,
I'm not a cat denier here. But there's more to Crookshanks than just a, crazy old house cat who just happens to be in cahoots with Sirius Black and Lupin and But Crookshanks as a cat, I don't know how Crookshanks fits into the nickname of Prongs, because at this point we don't know who Prongs is. But then,
not at the beginning of the chapter.
Not at the beginning of the chapter, but then towards the end of the chapter we get the revelation that Prongs is James Potter.
Yes.
So then I'm thinking, mind blown, is James Potter actually Crookshanks? Like, I had this whole moment in my head, Matt, where I'm hyperventilating a little bit, thinking James Potter is still alive. He's in the form of this stupid cat. And then I start breaking myself down because the stupid cat just attacked his son, but maybe he doesn't realize that that's his son, or maybe he's turned to the dark side also. Like, I'm trying to justify why Harry Potter's dad in cat form would attack Harry Potter, and I can't make that connection. I can't make any actual argument for that being a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think Crookshanks is Prongs.
Okay.
But who's Crookshanks? And then the question is, if Prongs, which we learn, is capable of being an animorph, I don't know what the actual word is.
Animagus.
Animagus. I don't like that. Doesn't sound good. Doesn't roll off the tongue very nicely, Matt. If he could also turn into an animal, or was able to at the time before his quote-unquote death, what animal was he turning into? Harry brings this up. He gets shot down. They move right along. They move right past it, Matt. Yeah, I'm just sitting there, like, my fist in my mouth. Like, why would you not answer the question?
So what do you think Prongs is?
I've been thinking about this for hours now. Okay.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of how that name could symbolize some sort of animal. And the only clue we have is that it's big enough to scare people away. Like, Sirius Black turned into this big dog, right?
Sure.
And we know Peter Pettigrew, the rat, was small enough so where he could, like, get through spaces and get to where he needed to get to.
Specifically under the branches of the Whomping Willow.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But they mentioned, specifically that Sirius and James both were capable of turning into big animals that could scare nosy people away that were trying to get too close or trying to get in on the secret of things.
Yeah.
So then that obviously eliminates Crookshanks, because nobody's scared of a stupid cat.
Unless you're a rat, but yeah.
That's true. So then what animal would it be? What animal would be big and scary? And the word Prongs just is not
scary.
It's just not transforming anything in my head into animal-like things. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with it. I don't know.
You got
I'm
nothing?
curious as to why they just skipped over it and they didn't want to talk about it.
Sure.
JK doing JK things, I guess. But man, I don't know.
Well, maybe we'll find out someday. Maybe.
And no, I would hope so. I would really hope so. I think this is crucial at some point.
Well, I mean, it seems to be the person to ask would be Lupin. He seems to be the know-it-all here.
Sure, but he didn't want to talk
Have
about
the
it.
most information. Yeah. So, and in your version of the story right now, Lupin's not going to be here next year.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's going on this like long explanation as to how he didn't want to betray Dumbledore. Like he knew about Sirius Black, like he knew about there were 3 Animorphs around that weren't registered. All these things that all this information he withheld from Dumbledore. And like he's openly admitting, yeah, I probably should have told him, but I really didn't want to because then I would have completely betrayed his trust for knowing the stuff. And, but then it's like, well, now, we all know that you know this stuff and he doesn't know this stuff. So yeah, you're probably getting canned at the end of this year. Like finals are over. See you later, Lupin. You're gone. You're out of here. I stand by that.
All right.
I mean, nothing that has happened here has actually saved the school or saved has been of any real importance, Did Dumbledore really think Sirius Black was coming after Harry Potter? But then again, if Dumbledore didn't know about the Marauders and their whole secret club, but then that doesn't make sense because Madame Pomfrey was in on it. She actually led Lupin at one point to the tree so he could go to the clubhouse and transform in the middle of the night, and that's when Snape saw him, and Snape started getting all curious about it.
Sure.
I don't know. It's just it's weird that Dumbledore wouldn't know any of this, but then at the same time, it doesn't seem like he does.
But at the same time, we've seen Dumbledore kind of play dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying that he knows for sure.
Sure.
But I think even though that he hasn't acknowledged it, there is still a chance that he knows.
Yes, I will accept that. That doesn't mean he's going to be too happy if he doesn't know and he finds out.
Yeah.
And sayonara Lupin. Out of here, sir. So I'm thinking, okay, he's just going to get fired because he's untrustworthy and he has all these secrets and he doesn't want to... He's keeping them from the headmaster. And then... something happens at the very end of this very short, very brief, very chaotic chapter.
Yes.
Something else is in the shack.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody actually heard anything. They heard something, right?
Well, they did. The door to the room flew open.
That's right. Okay.
And this part still gets me a little bit. Like, Sirius and Lupin should know better than this.
Yeah.
Like they're fully trained wizards. They see this door fly open, and yeah, it's an old shack, whatever. But you don't just look out in the hall and say, "Oh, there's nothing there."
Right.
But especially if you want privacy, which it kind of sounds like they do.
Sure.
That's why they're doing this off in the Shrieking Shack and not at the school or in the forest, or I don't know. But it's just like you don't just dismiss something like that in the magical world.
No, but you're in the middle of a very tense situation,
Yeah.
where somebody's about to get murdered and we're about to have some kids losing their mind, and Lupin is trying to be like the rock for everybody and try to just explain everything before it gets messy real quick. I don't know what the death of a rat, the murder of a rat would look like, but via magic, but I can't imagine it's too pleasant. So he's trying to just calm everybody. We have one kid with a broken leg. We have one kid that's ready to punch the lights out of this other adult. We have this girl who's freaking out, who knows way too much about everything. We have a rat that's like clawing and biting anything it possibly can to get away. We have this cat that's going insane. All these like factors are going on. This door opens. He's like, wow, that's weird, but okay, I need to get back to this, you know?
Or how's this for a twist? Lupin looks and he knows something is there and tells him that there's not.
That's possible. But why? What would be the point of that? The big question here, Matt, is how Snape got the invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
Because it's Snape. It's Snape. He reveals himself. It's Snape. Question.
Yeah.
Did he get the invisibility cloak? Or did he have an invisibility cloak?
I think I feel safe telling you that it is the invisibility cloak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's always felt like this was a very special thing that like not a lot of people had.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not floating around all over the place.
Right.
There is a very, very, very good chance that this is the only invisibility cloak at Hogwarts.
Okay. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. But it was described as when they were running towards the tree after Ron, that they couldn't keep the cloak over them, and then it was like dragging behind them like a cape, and then I think was it right after that? That's when they got like hit by the tree.
Yeah.
And so it's written so you kind of just forget about it.
Sure.
As J.K. does.
Sure.
But I think you kind of have to assume that we don't get a mention of it after that. So it's.
But I guess that's why I'm more curious about it, because then that would lead you to believe that Snape was following them or looking for them or knew where they were going. And that he was able to find the invisibility cloak, which I know how they depict it in the movie. It's kind of like shimmery and a little translucent. Like you could see that it's there type of thing until it's actually put on something, and then it's like, poof, gone. Yeah. But I'm having a hard time imagining, because I'm thinking this is at nighttime? Or like dusk, maybe?
Yeah, I think we're getting, kind of
late
dusk
afternoon,
time.
dusk. Yeah. Like it's starting to get a little bit of dark, losing some sunlight there. And then we expect Snape to find this invisible object out in the middle of like this field?
So, yeah, my impression is that it's only invisible when someone's wearing it.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's one of those things, it's like you created an invisible car, how do you know where you parked it?
Sure. But like I don't feel like it's like 100% visible though.
But I'd have to go back. I don't have it nearby right now. But when Harry gets it the first time, when it's just wrapped up and he opens it, like it's a physical object he can see.
Sure.
Like he doesn't open it up and he's holding thin air. Like why does this air have weight?
But he could also feel it and it's right in front of his face and he could like see that something's there type of thing. As opposed to,
but if it was completely invisible, he'd be holding some weight in his hands that he could see through.
I'm not saying it's completely invisible. I'm just saying there's an element, again, based on like how the movie depicts it, of it being somewhat translucent, somewhat see-through, like a little bit shimmery, like it has some visibility to it. But I'm just wondering how even that much would be visible to somebody just strolling along Hogwarts grounds and like just run into this thing, or like did he see it from far away and come running after it? Like, what's Snape's deal? What's he doing?
I get the impression that it's fairly large too.
Okay.
Because it can obviously completely cover Harry.
Right.
It can cover Harry and Hermione pretty well. Harry, Hermione, and Ron if they move slowly and walk together.
Sure.
It's fairly sizable. So if this comes flying off of a person or group of people and just lands on the ground without, like, they didn't lay it out like a picnic blanket so it was flat on the ground. It came flying off. It landed in a lump on the ground, and so there's probably, I don't know how well manicured their lawns are out at Hogwarts, but I'm assuming the grounds are fairly well kept. And so if there's this lump of cloth, fabric, whatever it's made out of, sitting there on the ground, it's going to look like something. Like you're going to be able to notice a lump of something there.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, that's not a rock. What is that?
Well, that just brings to question what Snape's doing out there in the first place, Matt.
I'll give you that.
I'm not saying it's impossible for him to find it. I'm just saying if he wasn't out there following them or being shifty like Snape is, it would have been a lot harder to find.
Sure.
And that's my bigger question is, why was he in the area? Why was he aware of what was going on enough to know that this cape had fallen from them, or a cloak, and, Snape's just up to no good. Snape is up to Snape things, and even when he's at his most endearing, I still don't trust the guy as far as I can throw him.
Sure.
And, No, that doesn't make sense. Never mind. I just had a weird theory that was quickly dissolved by my own brain.
Okay. If you say so.
I randomly had this thought of when Neville was fighting his boggart and it was Snape.
Yep.
And I was thinking, could that be what they were seeing? But that wouldn't make sense. Because then where would Neville be? Why would a boggart be Neville's fear if he's just doing his own thing? I was trying to justify it not actually being Snape and something else. But that's silly.
So what you're saying is Neville is Crookshanks.
Is he? No, that's crazy.
Is it?
Yes, it is, Matt. It's totally crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely nuts. Neville doesn't. No. Because why would Neville been hanging out in a pet shop? Unless his parents owned it. Or his grandparents? Did they own a pet shop?
I don't know.
No. It'd be ridiculous, Matt. Get out of here. You're just trying to throw off the scent. So that's where the chapter ended. We have Snape pointing his wand at Lupin. We have Sirius Black on the verge of attacking and grabbing Scabbers, who we assume is Peter Pettigrew. We have Crookshanks ready to pounce at any moment on said rat. We have Harry ready to continue his fight with Sirius Black, his fist fight. We have Ron with a broken leg. We have Hermione trying to piece everything together and be supportive of everybody, all in this one room, and the chapter ends. Just, we're at a standoff, and now you're going to make me wait for a week.
Pretty much.
How dare you, Matt? How dare you, Matt Sonnenberg?
It's what I do. Two things I want to mention before we get too far away from the chapter. One, the Wolfsbane potion that Snape's been making, Lupin's been taking.
Yes.
I love how that's a new discovery. That even in the wizarding world, they are still making these discoveries. Like you picture this as a new medicine or something, or a new procedure or something that they've figured out. And like I'm glad to see that they're still doing research and still able to figure out things in the wizarding world.
Yeah,
like that they don't know everything there is to know.
Right.
And let's see, second.
What they need to figure out is how to keep flopperworms alive. Let's be real.
Well, they figured it out. Just don't shove lettuce on the floor. Second, I like that we got a little more information about. I believe that the chapter was Snape's grudge,
and
how James saved Snape's life.
Right. Yes.
But originally, when I read that, like, I always thought it was James that put him in trouble in the first place. And
then it kind of saved him afterwards.
Yeah, it kind of was, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
It was more his friends that tricked him into it, and then James got word of it and did his thing.
Right.
But interesting dynamic that builds between Sirius and Snape and James and all of them.
You could kind of understand why he's bitter about things.
Yeah.
But, like, it also kind of show you that, like, the Marauders weren't bad kids. They were kind of troublemakers. You know, let's not sugarcoat it too much. But they genuinely didn't want to see anybody die, you know?
Yeah, the professors even admitted that.
Yeah.
Like, when they were talking about Sirius back in the day, like, he hung out with James and they were troublemakers.
Sure.
But I believe the way they put it was they could give Fred and George a run for the money.
Right.
Or maybe the other way around. Fred and George could give them a run for the money or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they weren't the clean-cut kids.
No.
They were a bit on the troublesome side.
Sure.
But they were also very good at what they did.
Yeah. And they weren't evil. You know, they weren't trying to kill anybody.
No, and that's the thing. Yeah, he saved Snape's life, and that's part of what gets me all the time. Is like Snape always seems to hold everything against James.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything that any of the Marauders did, he would hold against James.
Well, I think they also explained it like there was already some built-in jealousy going on with like how well James played Quidditch.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
So like there were some other factors. Like, for all we know, James stole his woman. Maybe Mrs. Potter was meant to be Mrs. Snape.
Yeah.
You know? We don't know what's going on there. God, that'd be weird. Yeah, there's fanfic written about that, I'm sure. So yeah, quite a cliffhanger to leave me on, Matt. Next week's going to be a doozy.
You'd think so.
Maybe we'll find out the fate of Buckbeak, huh? I have no idea how that weird animal fits back into this.
You're not going to let that go.
Nope. JK intentionally did not give us a clear explanation as to what happened. She left it to our imaginations. And look, when that happens, Muggle Theories episodes get written. So, here we are.
All right.
Do we have any emails this week, Matt? Any more emails, I should say. We already read one.
We do. We actually have a lot more.
Ooh. So
we should probably get started on those.
Let's do it.
So we have an email first from Rihanna.
Hi, Rihanna.
Says, hey guys, for 2 short chapters, we learned a lot. And I can now send one of my favorite parts of this book that happens all the way back in chapter 4. We have Arthur Weasley talking to Molly Weasley about Sirius Black. And he says, it's been 3 weeks and no one's seen hide nor hair of him. That's a direct quote from Arthur Weasley. Okay. It's been 3 weeks and no one's seen hide nor hair of him.
Okay.
Think Sirius Black as a dog.
Hide nor hair?
Yeah.
Not making the connection, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you? Is it just me?
No. I know what she's getting at.
Okay.
It's so obviously, yeah, that's more of an idiom nowadays. But if you think of that in the context of like, if you're talking about human, if you're talking about Sirius Black, seeing hide nor hair doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you're JK and you know that he's a dog or can change into a dog, and then you use the phrase hide nor hair.
That makes sense.
There you go.
But then, I mean, are we to assume that Mr. Weasley knows about the transformation? Or is it just like...
So. No.
Okay, just
clever writing on JK's part.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with your quirky little sayings, like, you know, as far as the crow flies or narrow as a crow flies, or whatever you say.
As the crow flies.
I'm sure that fits right into it, Matt.
And I've asked around. That is not a strange saying.
I'm sure Alex will have something to say about that.
I'm sure he will. It says, congratulations, Josh, on figuring out the werewolf bit. You danced around the idea of Sirius being a dog or cat as well. You also put quite a lot together about the Marauders map. Very impressive. So, who do you think Crookshanks is now?
Well, I definitely don't think it's Neville, despite Matt's efforts to convince me otherwise. I'm having a hard time putting Crookshanks into anything. Like I'm okay. I've been trying to think.
So you're finally off Lupin.
Yeah,
I think, right?
I have to be. Well, yeah, they're in the same room now for sure.
They were on the train together too, but you wouldn't do.
It was dark, Matt. Yeah. There was, Dementors. There's all kind of things going on.
Okay.
I've been trying to think back at like characters we know, right?
Sure. I suppose it would be hard for you to guess a character you don't know.
But like characters that I remember that stand out that would be important enough to be Crookshanks, Like Dumbledore popped in my head at some point.
Sure.
But I don't see Dumbledore attacking Harry, because that's weird, right? We know Miss McGonagall, Professor McGonagall, is capable of transforming into a cat. I don't think it's this specific cat.
Yeah.
But we know that's a thing. Something to be curious about.
Because the description of her cat is different than the description of Crookshanks.
We have Miss Norris, who's a cat. Do we know if Miss Norris can transform out of being a cat, or is she just a cat? We don't know that. I'm thinking of like all the other professors. None of the other professors make sense. Would Voldemort be a cat? Like that seems weird to me, given like his background. Like that seems like too fluffy of an animal for him. And then why would he be, loving up on Sirius Black? I would think at this point Sirius Black knows who the cat is. And Lupin too, because they're not too concerned about Crookshanks at all. All they're concerned about is the rat.
Yeah.
Unless both of them are evil dudes too, and they just haven't shown their true colors yet. We know it's not Snape. I'm pretty sure it's not James Potter at this point, because I can't connect how he would attack Harry. I don't know, Matt. I don't know. I'm at a loss.
Hey, if you come up with something during the week, let us know.
Yeah.
She also asked, what do you think Snape will do?
I don't know. He's mad about something. He's upset. Like, he feels like this might be time for revenge. Although he has been helping Lupin out all year. But was he helping him out because he wanted to, or because Dumbledore asked him to? They kind of have like this weird relationship. Is this going to be the time when he gets revenge on him? Is he going to take care of Peter Pettigrew himself and relieve that burden from those two? I don't know. Okay,
you have to pick something, just one thing. Snape just revealed himself. He's apparently been eavesdropping a little bit. He just revealed himself. What's the first thing he does?
Turns Lupin into a werewolf.
All right, there you go.
Hold my feet to the fire, Matt.
I do what I can. It's for the people. She says, sorry, you're left on a cliffhanger yet again. Can't wait for the next few weeks of reveals. Also, as a Seahawks fan, I really hope the Packers Super Bowl dreams die this weekend. I'd rather watch the Falcons. Well, you can tell she wrote this in earlier this week.
Right.
Before that happened, yeah.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, it happens.
That's sports for you.
Yep. Next email is from Harry Jackson, HSJ the Third.
Hi, Harry.
He says, "Hi, Josh and Matt. First of all, congrats on winning the 2016 Toys for Games Award for Spin-off Podcast of the Year, which I totally forgot to mention at the top of the show. We are now an award-winning podcast."
That's right. There's a reason why your parents love this podcast so much, folks, because it's award-winning. We are qualified.
There you go. He says, Matt walked home with so much well-deserved hardware that he's going to need a new shelf to hold all those golden strawberries. Anywho, I'm finally caught up with the readings and the podcast episode, so I have a few things I want to discuss. Josh, love the theories. Never stop guessing or worrying that anything is too out there. Glad you found a way to record your new... Glad we found a way to record your new theories without getting them spoiled on Twitter. And hope this week's cliffhanger ending didn't drive you too crazy.
Oh, it did.
It says, Matt, you deserve an Oscar or Emmy or Golden Strawberry for outstanding voice acting by being so unflinchingly consistent during Josh's theories. As we found out in this week's reading, Josh was so close with his animals transforming into humans theories, and you did not relent. You even actively worked to play devil's advocate. Amazing work and really fun podcast listening. I love the Marauders so much. I would love to have an entire book and/or movie series on the adventures of Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, narrated by Lee Jordan, of course.
Of course. That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that's not something I've thought of before, but yeah, I would totally watch anything related to the Marauders.
Yeah.
That would be great. I could see, Lee Jordan narrating a documentary style of the making of the Marauders map.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Anyway, he says, Matt, I'm sure you'll bring this up during the episode, which I didn't, but partly because I knew it was coming in the email.
Sure.
But and you previously mentioned JK has fun when naming things, which I have. I just love the time or effort she put into naming things, whether it be people or animals or spell names and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
It's very good. But she deserves serious credit in naming Lupin. I don't know how much you caught, Josh, but have you taken any Latin?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, he says, when I was in high school, I took Latin, which was a class that was almost as useless as Professor Trelawney's divination class, except that JK uses Latin for many bases of the spells and character names.
Sure.
So it felt like being in on the joke. In Latin, lupus means wolf. Lupinus means of the wolf. So you get Lupin out of there. No, not at all. And his first name, Remus, is also the first name of one of two brothers of the Roman myth that found Rome and were raised by a wolf.
You know
I believe that's Remus and Romulus, I want to say.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
You know what this means, though, right?
What's that?
I'm going to have to find a website dedicated to the history of the Latin language and start doing my own translations of every character we meet going forward.
I bet you Google should just translate it for you.
But here's the thing, Matt. I can't Google names.
But no, if you go to like Google Translate or something and just type in the name and specifically like from Latin or something. I'm going to have to try that now and see if it's safe for you or not.
Dangerous bridge to cross, Matt.
I know, because it'll give you the search results right below it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So he says,
Neville.
Right from the get-go, JK was tipping the readers that Lupin was a werewolf. As Josh would say, it was right in front of us the whole time.
It always is.
This email is long enough, but I wanted to say that I also really enjoyed the Wizarding World Butterbeer Banter episode and pass along that Universal does offer a tour-only line for the Forbidden Journey ride in the Hogwarts Castle, which I completely forgot about, but he's right. I do remember seeing signs for that, and I kind of thought it was odd. I never, who would do that? But right. I guess I kind of mentioned that in the last episode or in the Butterbeer Banter episode.
Sure. It's
like, yeah, people go just walk through that castle.
Yeah.
It's where you can just walk through the castle at your own pace without riding the ride. I'd recommend it for any first timers so that they can get the full story of the ride.
Awesome.
Um,
Thanks, Harry.
Yeah. And Harry, in answer to your last question, which obviously I'm not going to read right now, but yes, I do plan on telling Josh, but I'm going to wait till the end of the book.
Why would you do this on air, Matt?
Because it's more fun. So much more fun.
No, it's not.
It's fun for me. On to the next email. From our friend Brent over at the Pewtercast.
Our Floridonian friend.
You got it.
Floridian.
Dear Matt and Josh, hoping this reaches you in time before recording, which hopefully it will, because I don't see the latest episode of my podcast feed yet. So whilst twiddling my thumbs waiting for it to come out, I did have a few thoughts about these latest chapters, which is weird because usually I'm discussing something from a previous episode, but no, not this time. Mostly I'd like to say welcome to Josh. We have entered the part of the book where we finally start getting answers for plot reasons why this is my personal second favorite book. This is the part where Josh finally gets to find out if all those wild theories he's been spinning for the last 16 chapters are valid or complete hogwash.
Mix of both.
Theories like Sirius Black is Darth Vader, which was one of those that was so close to the truth, yet so far away at the same time. I suppose if Vader had said something like, Luke, I am your godfather, and I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, it might have been more on the spot. Also, congrats on picking up on the fact that the Marauders map was written by James, Sirius, Lupin, and Pettigrew. I think we could all picture Matt squirming as you spewed that one off a few weeks ago. And to be honest, yeah, that kind of got me down a little bit. I'm like, seriously, where'd you pull that one out? and I kept wondering, like, did I tip you off to that? Like, did I say something? Like, yeah. But I'll let it go.
Well, to be fair, I also quickly forgot about that whole theory anyway.
It's
moved
true.
on to more ridiculous things. So even when I'm right about stuff, it doesn't mean it's going to like ruin anything for me because I'm already moving on to the next thing.
Brent continues, but I wonder how close you are to figuring out the meanings of all the names, which we discussed in the episode you still have questions about.
Mm-hmm.
But we also get to know the ones you missed. Speaking of the theories again, like, how did you miss that Lupin is a werewolf? It was right there the entire time, from the beginning. And Crookshanks, have you really figured that one out yet? At the very least, you know now that Crookshanks is in cahoots with Sirius and Lupin.
Yes.
Anyway, we are certainly at the most fun part of the book, and I can't wait to continue in this journey with you. And I'm going to edit out the last line there because, as cryptic as it sounds, Josh could easily search for stuff and figure out why you put that in there. So, maybe another time. Then Brent actually sent a follow-up email because we released the Muggle Theories episode just this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was actually like right after he sent in his first email.
Okay. Right before I started reading today.
Yeah. Says, I just came across the Muggle Theories episode and I have two thoughts. One, congrats, Josh. I retract my previous statement about not figuring out the werewolf thing. Well done.
Fist bump.
He says, two, why in the world is this not in the podcast feed? Come on, guys. I almost missed this one altogether. And this is something I've been hoping you would do. Get on it. Again, well done, Josh. Now, if you could just figure out what's going on with Crookshanks. So, to address that, this is, I think, where I want to address that.
Okay.
So, Muggle Theories. It's, if you're a Patreon member, they actually got access to this on a private feed earlier in the week when we were discussing it on Twitter. The reason it wasn't in the podcast feed, which it is now, I just double checked this before we ran with it. We didn't post it to the public, the iTunes podcast feed
or the website.
or the website until this afternoon. And this is basically how it's going to work is when Josh comes up with a theory, Patreon members are going to get it right away. Everybody else will get it the day we record. Right.
Yeah, we definitely want everybody to hear it. We want to reward and thank everybody that's supporting us on Patreon first and foremost. At the same time, we don't want to put it behind any sort of paywall. We definitely want everybody to hear it, but putting it out early, several days before we record, before I read, opens up the possibility of somebody either confirming or denouncing my theory that I put out there.
Yeah.
And that would be unfortunate.
Yeah. So basically, we don't want to put it out there in the open to the public on Twitter or just the recording of it out there, because there's a chance that someone's going to listen to it and not fully understand what we're doing here on the podcast and how it works. And they'll just think you're crazy. That's exactly what happens, or that's not at all what happens. And try to correct Josh or something like that. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
And especially so because they're so short that maybe not regular everyday listeners could still check it out, hear something, and be like, this guy's crazy. What is he talking about?
Yeah. So that's why we're not putting it out there right away for the public to see.
Yes.
Like we said, it will be out earlier on the Patreon feed if you're interested in getting it earlier. Otherwise, everybody will have access. The public will have access to it the day we record, the day Josh is reading. So by the time you actually listen to it, he's reading the next chapters.
Yep.
And so he gets to find out then if it's true or not.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be a big deal at that point if someone does spoil something, because he'll know. He'll
I
have
literally
read the
hit
next
publish,
section.
Closed my web browser, and then opened up my notes and started reading.
Yeah.
Like within a matter of a minute. So
I hope that explains why we're doing it the way we're doing it.
Yeah.
If anybody has any more questions about that, feel free to reach out, whether email or Twitter or DM or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if we do record them and we put them out there, because this one was the first one, we weren't really sure how to handle it. But I think going forward, we will at least say that, hey, there's a new Muggle Theories recorded. It will be up next Monday by this time. Look for it then, unless you're on Patreon, and then you'll get it ASAP. So we'll at least let you know that it's coming, so it's not a surprise. So then when it does hit the feed, you could check it out and listen to it before the next full episode comes out.
So, Josh, I haven't officially talked to you about this part of it, but because I am going to be able to pre-screen all of these, this one worked out very nicely, that everything you predicted in that episode basically was proven true or false in this reading, this next reading. Mm-hmm. But if for some reason you would make a prediction that does get proven right or wrong somewhere in the book, but it's like 2 or 3 readings later, I think I am going to hold off. We'll give it to Patreon right away.
Okay.
Still, but I'm going to hold off publishing that to the public until right before we read those chapters that prove it right or wrong.
Fair enough.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're going to run into that same problem where you get that, we publish it and then you still don't find out for another 2 weeks.
Right.
And so it's going to be hanging out there in the public for 2 weeks where someone could do something with it.
Right.
So I hope that makes sense too.
Yep, that makes sense. And before we tweet about it and let people know to expect it, obviously you'll give the green light or not.
Yeah. So yeah, once again, just want to reiterate that we're not trying to withhold things from you guys. We're just trying to basically keep the integrity of the podcast intact.
Yeah, which is incredibly hard.
Yeah. It's a rough job, and like I said, we thank all of you who are loyal listeners who understand what's going on with the podcast. And so I'm sorry if you have to wait a little bit longer to hear these things, but just for Josh's sake and the sake of the podcast, like I said, I think that's the best way we can do it.
Yep.
All right. So, final 2 emails
Alrighty.
are once again both from the same person, but it's our good friend Atari Alex. He kind of ran into the same issue that Brent did. He sent in his email and then saw the Muggle theories and then sent in another email. So
Sure.
We'll just go through them. It says, "Dear Josh and Matt."
And going forward, like, if you need to send multiple emails to, like, correct something because the Muggle theories comes out and you hear it and your email is suddenly invalid, go for it. Absolutely go for it.
Yeah, no problem there.
We're not trying to make your lives difficult, but, you know.
Says, "I normally begin these emails with an attempt at some wit and pointing out what you got wrong last week. This week, however, I simply have a question. What did baseball ever do to you to make you dislike it so much, Matt? I think it's only fair that since you got Josh to do a Harry Potter podcast with you, that you should do a baseball podcast with him so that he can teach you to love America's pastime."
I don't know if I could even, like, realistically do that. Like, I don't know if I can make a non-baseball fan love baseball.
Sure.
Especially podcasting. Podcasting about baseball would be a little rough, I think.
Well, you could probably do it during the game and you wouldn't miss anything. So
Too much, man. Too much.
all right. Anywho, on to this week. I am furious. How can someone possibly reveal so much about the underlying mystery of this book and yet still leave so many questions?
Right?
Sounds familiar, Josh, doesn't it? Even though I know what happens, I was mad at J.K. Rowling for ending the chapter there, having only given half the explanation. But even more upset at the podcast forcing me to stop reading there. Because if it wasn't for you guys, I would have finished the book off last night. Although, to be fair, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be rereading the books in the first place. So I can't stay mad at you.
Thanks, Alex.
I don't have anything else to add, but because since these chapters were all plot. Great grammar there. Unless I'm just reading that wrong. Again, that's a phrase I don't know. Because since.
Don't do this,
Okay.
Matt.
Verbatim, Alex says, "I don't have anything else to add because since these chapters were all plot, I know Josh is going to overanalyze every detail for me."
That's true. It's true.
And then we have the Muggle Theories update. I just finished listening to the first episode of Muggle Theories. I am flabbergasted at how consistently Josh manages to almost guess at some big plot points, but somehow managed to make a sharp left turn and end up wrong. To be honest, that always amuses me. I'm like, oh, he's got it. Oh, not
I
quite.
talk myself out of it because I start thinking about other things every time.
So when I saw the title of the episode, I thought for sure Josh had guessed that Lupin is a werewolf, and I was disappointed because I want J.K. Rowling to bamboozle him like she did the rest of us. But then he started talking about the Grimm being a werewolf and Sirius being the Grimm, so he was partially right. Then he got hung up on who Crookshanks is again, and he was lost.
Crookshanks is the bane of my existence at this point.
Then he went down the other path.
Cat.
Then he went down the other path of Lupin being the Grimm/werewolf and Sirius being Crookshanks. So again, he was super close. He just got some details wrong. Long story short, Josh, I applaud your effort, but it brings me great joy to see you be wrong.
Thank you, Alex. I'm pleased to serve you in that aspect.
Yeah, and I know I've said it before, but JK got so many of us because one, we read these for the first time when we were so much younger than we are now.
Right.
And two, who read 2 chapters a week and then just sat there thinking about it all week? Like, none of us did that. None of us. If we had questions, we kept reading. And we got to figure it out.
Like any normal person would do, Matt.
Yeah. We didn't sit there thinking about, trying to piece all these pieces of the puzzle together. Like that's just, no one did that.
No.
And so that's why you are able to piece some of these things together, because like we said, the pieces are all there.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that. My eyes are wide open to this fact.
Yeah,
I'm just not catching what she's throwing down. I don't know Latin. That's my problem.
Regardless, it is impressive just to see that. I suppose she probably wondered that too when she was writing. Like, she put all the pieces in there, but you still have to wonder, when someone's reading through, is anyone still going to catch that? Well, is anyone going to try to piece it together? Is anyone going to take the time to do that? Like, it's nice to see that it is possible.
All she has to do is throw in a Lee Jordan chapter, and everything you've been thinking about is completely out the window because you're so excited about Quidditch all of a sudden.
Fair enough. More Lee Jordan. Got it.
Yeah. Is that it?
I believe that is it.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everybody that emailed this week. It's always nice getting that many emails.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like, every couple of days, I got another email. Like, people started sending them in the middle of the week, which there's absolutely no problem with sending them early. Like, I got an email. The first email we read at the beginning of the show came in on the 18th. That was like the morning or 1 or 2 days after we published last week's episode.
Yeah.
Like,
awesome.
No problem. Send it in right away. That's fine.
Absolutely. Matt has nothing better to do than read emails, so it sounds fantastic to me. Next week, man, we better get some answers. If I have to go one more week without knowing what's up with Crookshanks, I am going to lose my mind. That stupid cat is the only thing that I care about finding out from that. I don't care about Buckbeak's fate. I don't care about why Hermione is taking 8,000 classes at once and what her deal is this entire time. I don't care where Voldemort is. I don't care why Sirius Black wants to kill Pettigrew. I don't care about anything other than finding out who Crookshanks is, because he's not just a stupid cat. That's all I want next week, Matt. That's all I want for Christmas.
We'll see what we can do.
If I have to wait until the final chapters of this book, I am going to flip a table. I'm just telling you right now. So, let that sink in as we get closer to next week's episode 31, where we cover chapters 19 and 20 of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Also, be sure to check out the Butterbeer Banter episode, which is already up for your listening pleasure. And if you didn't check out the first episode of Muggle Theories, that's up as well. Check it out. See what you think. Matt, earlier you mentioned, before off air, some sort of challenge for me.
I did.
Speaking of Muggle Theories.
I did. But now is not the time.
Oh! I've been wanting to... I've been waiting for this the entire show all of a sudden, and now you're just taking it away from me.
I know. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer with that one. A special shout out to, I should probably look this up. It is over in our Patreon Slack chat, the room of requirement, if you will. Well, you wouldn't, because you still don't understand that reference. But for everybody that's over there, I just want to double check where did. Yeah, that it was Lauren. We've interacted with her a few times, but yeah, Lauren came up with a great idea on a way to kind of, in a sense, help us expand Muggle theories.
Okay.
Which we will address in a couple of weeks.
Fair enough, Matt.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It'll make sense when I get there.
It has to do with Crookshanks, doesn't it?
I'm not giving you anything right now.
Oh!
But
You're killing me.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, everybody over in the Slack chat. You guys have been great for ideas. So I want to give you the credit when I can.
You guys are torturing me.
Oh, no. You'll love them for it. Don't worry.
All right. With that being said, Matt, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. Like I said, next week we'll be back with episode 31, chapters 19 and 20 of Prisoner of Azkaban, as we near closer to the end of this adventure, which means we're only 2 weeks away from finally getting to see this film, which better be better than the first two. You can find me personally on Twitter at The Noise. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Tales from GH. That's where you'll find all information about shows that are going up. The Muggle Poll, of course. Any new episodes of Butterbeer Banter or Muggle Theories specifically. Or just basic general interaction. I think today I wrote 2 chapters of Harry Potter via emoticons, and that was fun.
That was impressive.
I was like, how far could I go with this?
Yeah, I just don't. I've never really been a big fan
Sure.
of the emoticons, and so I've never really looked into them too much to figure out exactly what they have.
My worry
yeah.
is that people seeing it on not an iPhone, because I'm using an iPhone and
Sure.
iOS, so I worry about what it looks like to non-iOS users, but then I don't care because you should be using iPhones.
Yeah, I have an iPhone, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. But that was fun. So that's all over on Twitter at Tales from GH. And then before I sign it off to Matt here, we're going to do something fun. If you've listened to the end of this show, first of all, thank you. Second of all, the first person to tweet at Tales from GH asking or requesting or raising your hand wanting a Tina Lego Dimensions figure from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. First one to ask for it gets it. I'll send it your way. At Tales from GH.
There you go.
Just like that. Easiest giveaway you'll ever do.
I like it.
Yeah. Matt, where can people find you at?
Well, you can find me over on Twitter personally at As a Matter of Matt. Or if you want to write the show, send an email like the half a dozen people did this week. You can do that at talesfromgodricshollow@gmail.com.
Fantastic. And then, of course, we talked about it several times, but our Patreon is located over at patreon.com/Tales from Godric's Hollow. Matt, thank you, as always, for a wonderful evening. Thank you for the constant frustration.
Thank you for your wonderful theories.
Thank you for making the next week of my life incredibly difficult. But I got some things to think about here. So
that's good.
With any luck, we might see a Muggle Theories coming out of tonight's show.
Sweet.
But until next time, everybody out there, again, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. Muggle out.
Mischief managed.